This is Tiger Cats postgame on the Ticats Audio Network.
The Hamilton Tiger Cats are moving on to the Eastern Final. Louie B, Andy, Fantuz here on Tiger Cats postgame on the Ticats Audio Network. The Ticats getting out of here with a 23-12 win and will now travel to Toronto in 1 week's time for a spot in the Grey Cup back here 2 weeks from today. And as mentioned, Andy Fantuz, Louie B here with you. We're going to be joined by Coach O, get exclusive access to the coaching room. We'll be joined by Garrett Davis. We'll name our performer of the game. We'll have a post-game roundtable, Courtney Stephen and Luke Tasker, and we'll review Andy's Carstar keys to victory. But Andy, initial thoughts, the Ticats going to the East Final for a second year in a row.
Story of the day is the defense of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. 5 turnovers and just completely shutting down that running game. You knew that was going to be the key from day one. It was Montreal's key was to get the running game going. The Tiger Cats' key was to stop it, and the Tiger Cats won that battle. William Stanback, only 29 yards on 12 carries, and then forcing them to be one-dimensional and coming up with those huge turnovers, the interception, the fumbles, and then the turnover on downs. What was the story of the game?
The lowest output of the season for William Stanback in 3 of his 4 lowest totals, outside of one in Ottawa where he was pulled late in the game, have come against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And in 2019 in the East semifinal, he had 9 carries for 38 yards. So in the last 2 East semifinals, William Stanback, a guy who has been dominant. Ticats didn't have him last time, but this time they did, and they found a way to get it done. Trevor Harris did have 364 yards through the air. Montreal did finish with a total net yards of 371. It seemed like they had a game plan, Eugene Lewis against Des Lawrence, but, Des Lawrence came up with some big plays when he needed to, just like the rest of the secondary and defense.
Yeah, you look at the stats, and you would think that it would have been a closer game, or if not a Montreal favored. They had almost twice as many net yards, a lot more first downs, more time of possession, but it was forcing them to kind of nickel and dime their way down the field and coming up with big stops at crucial times, which was the difference. And you look across that defensive line, and you can name every single player were studs today. All their names are called multiple times. The linebacking crew is getting involved. We talked about Tunde Adeleke and 10 tackles. He's filling in the gaps in the running game. Just a complete dominance in the box by that Hamilton Tiger Cat front 7.
Yeah, a great performance because, there were some questions. Deontay Evans was a game-time decision, and, how big is that for Deontay Evans? I was told that it was kind of right up until an hour. He was still getting treatment, didn't get the get-go to play, but an extra week of recovery going into the East Final. And by the way, there's a certain 1,000-yard receiver who is activated off the 6-game injured list who practiced this week, who might be ready in time for the East Final. But the Ticats, again, it was a balanced passing attack. Not as many guys getting involved. Dunbar Jr. didn't get involved, but Tim White, 4 catches for 54 yards. Jalen Ackland, 5 catches for 56 yards. Speedy B, 5 catches for 58 yards. That's great ball distribution from Jeremiah.
It is, but it's certainly going to be something that the Tiger Cats are going to need to improve on come against Toronto. 184 yards passing and 50 yards rushing, 50-ish yards rushing. Might not get it done if it wasn't for the turnovers. But that's just the way the game goes. It's hard. It's easy to point a finger at the statistics after the fact. But during the game, it looked like they were in control. They did what they had to do. They managed the game, and they were spreading the ball around nicely, like you mentioned. But it's going to be something. It's going to be a situation that the Cats are going to try to, build on that playbook a little bit against a Montreal defense against a Toronto defense who has a lot more length and height, and has been sort of that defense that they give up a lot of yards, but they make a lot of big plays at the same time. So it's you really, that ball security is going to be an issue against them, and that accuracy. So we'll see how the weather develops, and anyway, we'll get to next week as it comes. But
I was just about to say.
But today, you just got to. Jeremiah did a great job managing the game. He did have a couple receivers drop some passes, missed a couple throws, but overall did what he had to do to get to where we are now, and a 11-point victory.
Maybe something that might fly under the radar was the Ticats kick return defense, specifically punt return. The longest return was by Reed for 18 yards, but he averaged 7.8 yards per return. Tyler Tanowski was all over the field out there, and I have to imagine Jeff Reinbold's going to be a happy man in the special teams meetings this week.
Yeah, you talk about seven something yard. Was it 7.8? 7.8 yards return average. Well, you got to remember that they're getting a 5-yard halo, so they have a 5-yard head start. So that's really stingy of a cover team, and that's excellent playoff football. And you could tell that they have all the lanes covered. They're not taking unnecessary penalties, and so that part of the game is secure, and that's what you want.
All right, let's name our performer of the game, presented by Hercules Tires. Ride on our strength. And for this one, I mean, we really could have picked just about anyone on the defensive line, on the defense front seven, but who did we go with today?
Jagarrett Davis, we're going to go with today. He's a guy who's been there all year. He's a East Division All-Star, and has really been just outstanding. And just not only his stats, but just watching him, you can see the impact that he makes all season long. But today, he had 3 tackles, 2 sacks, forced fumble. Just part of that outstanding defensive line in front seven that we talked about. So hats off to Jagarett Davis, our performer of the game.
And of course, he threw in a knockdown as well at the line. And Trevor Harris is going to look at these numbers and think, what more do I have to do if we have William Stanback, who's good at 100? Because but the Ticats had a game plan, and there was some prevention late in that fourth quarter. But the Ticats had a game plan, even with these conditions, even with this crowd and the snow and the wet and the cold. They made it done. This was a pretty convincing win, I would say. It felt more convincing at times, but I think the Ticats are going to be happy with this.
Yeah, the game plan was simple: shut down the run and prevent the big play, prevent the long passes, and that's exactly what they did. Yeah, Trevor Harris had 364 yards, but they're all in between 0 to 15, 20-yard completions at the max. So they're all just nickel and diming down the field, and to continue that for 4 quarters against this Ticat defense is next to impossible. So they executed their game plan well, and Montreal, they controlled the time of possession, they controlled the number of first downs, the amount of yards, but they weren't able to get those big plays and really dominate with the running game, which is their bread and butter, and that led to the Ticats getting some turnovers and getting some points off those turnovers.
Tunde Adeleke finished the game with 10 tackles as well, playing in a position that he's not used to playing. I know that secondary is they're very close, but what did you think of what Tunde did? Katsantonis came up with a big interception to set up a field goal as time late in that first half. Those are going to be, again, big plays that the defense is going to be happy. Mark Washington's going to be happy. Have to imagine Coach Butts is going to be happy. There's going to be some film work for Des Lawrence, I think, for sure. There was some Eugene Lewis finishing with 127 yards, but a lot of those catches were just fantastic catches. But all around defensively, is there something you'd like to see improved going into Sunday's Eastern Final?
Yeah, there were some nice catches by Eugene Lewis, but there was a lot of zone. So you can't put all the blame on Desmond Lawrence. We talked about it earlier. If something were to happen, Desmond Lawrence went down for a couple plays. We saw Cameron Kelly go into the secondary and play some field corner, and so we did see some shuffling around, and that just goes to show the confidence they have in Katsantonis in particular to go in and start a free safety, play the entire game, not give up any big plays down the middle, and Tunde was still able to kind of shuffle over to that field half spot and still make the impact that he's made all year long on the game. And that's just incredible testament to what he brings to this team and to this defense.
So the Hamilton Tiger Cats had 2 penalties on the first drive for a total of 30 yards that helped the Alouettes march down the field. The rest of the game, 6 penalties for 30 yards. So 2 for 30 in the first drive, and they really cleaned that up. And credit to this Ticats team, because it looked like the Owls had a plan to try and get the Ticats off their game. That little extra push, that little extra pull after the play when the ref's not looking. Give the Ticats credit. They stayed disciplined when it looked like Montreal. And Montreal did finish with 14 penalties for 115 yards. That's a huge advantage for the Ticats.
Huge disparity. That's that that's that unselfish, mindset that we were referring to before, and it's clear that gets, set down the ranks from Coach O down through the staff and to the players of, this is bigger than us, it's bigger than individual. It doesn't matter what what battle you're in, you're chirping somebody and you're hitting it back. This is a team game, and you're not going to do anything that's selfish to hurt this team. And so, you don't want any penalties, but we're always striving for that perfect game, as Coach O would say. But it's, sometimes the penalties are going to happen. And what did you say, 60 yards against 115 yards. Yeah, big disparity, and that helps as well. But the biggest, the most glaring
really
stat on the
out.
thing is the 5-0 turnovers, and just such a difference maker when you're out yarded. Net yards 371 to 206, almost double net yards, more time of possession. But when you have those turnovers, you don't give up those big plays. You don't allow that running game to really just control the pace of the game and the tempo. That's how the Ticats wanted to play this, and they're happy with that stat line.
It's one thing to have home team advantage, to say it. It's another thing to back it up. No team in the CFL has won more home playoff games than the Hamilton Tiger Cats since this building opened. You were lucky enough to get to run onto the field alongside Courtney and Luke and Hitch and Les Brown. And, you must have felt it. I felt it from where I was standing. You must have felt it right away.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. It feels like forever since I've been in this situation with the crowd roaring and just reacting to what you're doing. So that was electric. That was a lot of fun. But this crowd was. It's kind of crazy, right? It's like almost that playoff frame of mind of even the stands that we were talking about, because they got quiet. They were a little bit quieted in that first drive because it took so much time off the clock. But with that big stop by Simone and Jagarrett to only give 3 points, and then when the team started rolling, it was really from that Hauser fumble recovery return and then the Banks touchdown. From then on, you could just feel electricity in here, and that 13th man really made a difference. And so, you got to go to Toronto and take care of business there, and then another, fingers crossed, another home game for when it counts.
Just two scoring plays for the just two scoring plays, drives on the for the Montreal Alouettes. They had a field goal to open the game, and as you mentioned, they marched that ball down 110 yards before a great stop by JG, and then scoring a little bit later on with a touchdown to Eugene Lewis on a fantastic catch. But there's a lot of things to be encouraged about if you're the Hamilton Tiger Cats. That being said, this Toronto Argonauts team, they've been resting. They watched this game together. They were, take us through. Like, how did the Toronto Argonauts, do you think, watch this game, and how do you put that forward moving on to Sunday? Like the Argos, would they have watched this game as a team?
I don't know about as a team, but they're going to watch it as a team tomorrow. Yeah. They're probably feeling pretty confident against a Hamilton team because they have won 3 out of 4, and the most recent game they won in handle the fashion. So they're probably feeling confident, but at the same time they know that this is a strong team. They have a ton of talent, and they weren't necessarily playing their best football. So against a Toronto team, they're going to have a lot of dynamic options on offense, and they're going to be that. I continuously talk about that length on their defense. You're going to have the accuracy in the passing, and make sure you don't turn the ball over against the Toronto Argonaut team.
This was Hamilton's 8th win in the playoffs since 2010. Calgary has 7. They're just getting underway in a few minutes, and we'll keep you updated on that in case anything happens, in case you're curious as you're listening on the way home here on the Ticats Audio Network. Defensively, I know we talked about this a lot, but when you look at this group of guys and what they've gone through, and especially that front four, 2019 left a really sour taste. How does that translate onto the field, what we saw? Did you see that? Did you see those guys kind of, or was this all Montreal? You were focused on the task at hand? Because it seemed like there was a little extra energy, and maybe the 2 roughing the passer penalties in the first quarter can maybe attest to just how fired up this Ticats team was.
Maybe it's an unconscious kind of extra energy, extra pressure because they were in 2019. They were the group in the CFL. They both the defensive lines in the Grey Cup were excellent, but they really got manhandled by Winnipeg, and I'm sure that didn't sit well with them. And so now is their chance to kind of prove themselves. And boy, did they ever in the first game of the playoffs. So they're going to look to keep that going. And as a group, it's always, this defense thrives when they do it by committee, and today they certainly did. We mentioned every single person on that team multiple times for different reasons. So that's the type of defense that you want to play as a Ticat and have that group type of approach to the game.
The longest drive of the game for the Hamilton Tiger Cats was 10 plays, and they didn't end up scoring on it. They ended up punting. The next highest was 6. They had 6 plays once, and then they had 5 plays 4 times. Does that concern you at all, or what do you make of those numbers? A lot of that was short field. You were able to move the ball pretty quickly, but just one play of 10 plus yards, and it was 10, and then nothing more than 6. Is that one thing? I know we're being critical here, and they won, but is that something that jumps out at you?
It does. It's a bit concerning, the lack of offensive production, but just sometimes the game flows in a certain way, and you can't really dive into it too much. Statistics are statistics for a reason because they're objective, but you got to have a feel for what's happening during that game. And there were a certain few key plays that could have extended drives, and those numbers could have been quite different. But you're going to want to improve on all areas of those numbers going into Toronto in the East Final, because you got to expect it's going to be a little more challenging than tonight.
We want to make next Sunday's game feel like a home game. Help fill BMO Field with black and gold. Go to that team from Toronto.ca, or actually Argonauts.ca. Argonauts.ca for tickets. You want to make that building feel like a home game. And I was just asking you, I think you scored the first ever touchdown at BMO Field to open it, I believe.
How did you know that?
Listen, I've been saving that one in the back of my mind all day. I've just been waiting to throw it out there. But
yeah, it was the start of what year? Oh my goodness, you would know. Whatever year that was, we played the opening game, and I had the first touchdown and punted the ball into Liberty Village, and that was amazing. So, I'm glad somebody recognized.
Hey, yeah. Listen, that is a record that nobody can take away from you. Nobody else can score the first touchdown at a new stadium that they're playing at. So, yeah, man, that's an awesome stat. I'd be telling people all the time that I had that stat. I'd have a plaque made. Hey,
we always sit here. We talk. We always remember Bakari's the first touchdown at Tim Hortons Field vividly. So, I guess if I was, if there was a home touchdown, it might have been a little bit different. But regardless, going to BMO Field, I feel like the Ticats have had great games there, and games for a lot to room for improvement.
I was about to say, they'll want to erase the memories of the last time they played there. But right now we're going to go exclusive access to the coaching room. Time to check in with Coach O, presented by Access Storage. And Coach, it is hard to win football games. I have to imagine that's even more so in the playoffs. Just take us, tell us about how proud you are of your guys for their performance tonight.
Well, yeah, I'm just beyond proud. I thought they showed up and played. We knew we were going to have a tough go of it, and that's how it started off. But at the end of the day, in playoffs, you're looking for one more point. We got more than that, so I'm extremely proud of all of them, man, the whole organization.
Coach, from up here, we're thinking you got to shut down the run, you got to eliminate the big plays. Trevor Harris had 364 yards passing, but it was all those intermediate and short routes. Was that the game plan going in, to sort of let them sort of nickel, or not let them, but be okay with them nickel and diming, as long as that bend not break type of mentality?
That's kind of the way that it presented itself down the road, and as the game progressed. To say that we went in, to say that we wanted to let them throw for 350, that wasn't it. But you're going to buy that when somebody throws the ball, upwards of 45 times. You're going to give up some yards, and at that point, it's the kind of yards that you give up. And then with the yards, are you giving up points, big points at the end of those drives? And I think that's the difference. They were able to get yards last time we played them, but they were also able to get points. And tonight, or this afternoon, it wasn't that way. So we had an overall plan, but then there's always the plan within the plan.
Yeah, and how much of a factor did the conditions play into that going in? You had talked earlier, you couldn't fake snow. You had said it was kind of you couldn't wait, you couldn't make a plan until you knew on game day. Like when you woke up this morning, saw the snow on the ground, I have to imagine you called your coaches pretty quickly. How much of the game plan was affected by the weather?
None. We were already ready. I'm being serious. We prepared for that, and we talked about the forecast, and not that meteorologists are always right, but we thought they had a chance to be pretty right on this. And, a lot that goes into it as far as footwear and that sort of thing. You just don't show up and play, and then you got to adjust your game plan along the way. So there was no call to the coaches. We were already prepared well beforehand.
Coach, who's DJing in the coach's locker room right now with the Montel Jordan?
I don't know. Somebody might have a second job, though. No second calling.
Do you have any concern with the kind of the offensive production? There's I'm looking at it thinking the game flowed in a certain way, and you did what you had to do, but not having a ton of yards, only 206 total yards. Is that a concern going into Toronto, or is it just kind of the way the game kind of played out?
Yeah. No, it really isn't. I know that we have big play capabilities. We didn't execute in some phases, but I'll tell you what, we had some timely plays early. Big drive, big touchdown that really helped set the tone and change the momentum of the game. So, in an elimination football, you got to take the way it is, and sometimes the defense and special teams are going to have to carry the football team, and that's the way it goes. And sometimes the offense, you got to find 2 of the 3 phases to carry you. So it's something that we'll address, but it's not a concern.
Obviously, Ciante Evans not being able to go, you had to move Tunde over, and Katsantonis coming up with that big interception. But, it felt like it was the yards after the catch that kind of went a further way to put you in great field position, for 3 points. What'd you see from Katsantonis on that play?
Just the moment wasn't too big for him. Right? He's a competitor. He's a self-starter. He's got great people in front of him to learn from, and Mike Daly and obviously Tunde Adeleke. Those guys are true professionals, and who better to learn from? And I just think he was ready for this moment, and so I'm just proud of him. But more importantly, I'm just happy for our team. That was something that we needed right before the half. That was big.
Yeah, huge. Coach,
great. Yeah, great win. Congratulations, and enjoy this one, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
That is Coach O, and exclusive access to the coaching room presented by Access Storage. In just a few moments, we'll be going down to the locker room and to connect with Jagarrett Davis. We still have our post-game roundtable with Courtney Stephen and Luke Tasker, and we'll revisit Andy's CarStar Keys to Victory, which if you have on a bingo card, you've probably already heard them about 5, 6, 7 times each, because the Ticats did exactly what you had asked, or what you had thought they needed to do to get the victory, and it again, Coach had said it, maybe the offense wasn't what they wanted it to. Just, 230 yards, it looks like, on the offensively. But, that defense stepped up, and one of the men up front was Jagarrett Davis, and we go down to the locker room to connect with him. This exclusive post-game interview is presented by Access Storage. And, JG, just take us through how you feel your defense played, your team played, just your thoughts on that win.
I feel we stepped up to the challenge. We knew all week Montreal was going to come out and try to establish the run and impose their will. So we just took it upon ourselves just to make it be more physical, dominate up front, dominate the line of scrimmage, and make it tough for the running game and for Trevor Harris to really make his throws. Trevor Harris is a very elite quarterback, and we knew if he get in rhythm early, it was going to be a long game. So we just try to show him a lot of different looks and keep him guessing, and it worked in our favor. And as a team as a whole, our offense came out firing early. They scored a little bit late, but they still made plays when we needed them the most. Our special team came out and executed like they always do. And we did a great team overall victory.
Jagarrett, you've been making impacts all year long, and it's very my pleasure to announce you with our player of the game today. How comfortable is it, or how to know that even though you only had 6 defensive backs dressing on the roster, and one of them went down or became a scratch before the game even started, to have that confidence in your secondary behind that strong front seven that's been there all year, to know that, okay, they still got our backs and we can still do our thing.
I'm very confident. The reason being because every person on our team, no matter if the offensive, defense, or special team player, everybody practices and prepares like they're going to be a starter. So when stuff like that happens, the next guy up, it's not like, oh, they getting thrown into the fire. No, they've been preparing and practicing all week, studying film, going through the plays, practicing the plays. So when they get out there, we're expecting them to execute and play like one, and that's what they did today. No matter what happened when guys went down, guys ended up getting scratched late, the next person played up and played just as good as the person who went down, so we didn't have no drop-off.
Garrett, I noticed at one point, it looked like an Owls player was trying to, get in the grill of Des Lawrence, and you were real quick to get in front of Des, and you kind of walked with him all the way back to the sidelines. Do you feel like your role on this team has developed into that? I don't want to use the word mentor, but I mean, do you feel your leadership has kind of evolved this year? Because it seemed like a really interesting moment because, Des was fired up and you calmed him right down.
Honestly, I just try to do whatever it takes to help the team win. I mean, regardless of the situation or role I might be able to assume or don't assume, if I can feel I can help out the team, then that's what I do. I mean, a lot of guys look up to me and respect my voice and opinion. So the fact that I can just be there for them is big for me. I mean, it's bigger than starting, in my opinion. Just being able to give them a voice and reason to lock back in, refocus, and to be ready for the next play.
Yeah, JG, I mean, how quickly do you refocus on Toronto? I know Coach usually lets you enjoy these games, and so how quickly are you turning the focus? How long are you gonna enjoy this one before you flip the switch?
What time is it? It's about 4:40. By the time tomorrow, I'm already on to the next game. I mean, we played a team. We had a great team win, but we're not finished. I mean, we got more unfinished business. Our goal is the Grey Cup. It's always the goal. So our next opponent is in our opinion, the best opponent. So organized. So just we get ready, right back to the drawing board, ready for another battle.
My man JG, enjoy this one, and we'll see you next week. Good luck.
I appreciate it, man. Y'all enjoy it. Have a safe evening.
Yeah, you too. That is Jagarrett Davis, and that exclusive post-game interview presented by Access Storage. And Jagarrett Davis was also named our performer of the game, presented by Hercules Tire. Ride on our strength. Andy, let's get to your CarStar keys to victory. And I know we've hit them already throughout the show, maybe not as intentionally as we wanted to, but the Ticats must have been listening in the locker room. Turn the music down, because Andy's got his 3 keys to the game, and they certainly listened. What'd you have for number 1?
Number 1 was persistent playoff frame of mind, and that's a big thumbs up for me today. Because the game started out with that long drive, and the crowd was quieted, so that was one opportunity to sort of lose your steam, so to speak. Those penalties, another example of losing your steam. All the difference in penalties. Hamilton wasn't selfish in getting those same amount of penalties that Montreal was. Even when Montreal came on in the third quarter, yeah, you're bending a little bit, but not breaking, and then really taking control of the game in the fourth quarter. So overall, that's a big thumbs up. Just mentally tough team from start to finish.
Yeah, and I mean, how big is that? Because the first quarter obviously didn't go the way they wanted to. They were down 3-0. It seemed like there was a hard reset at the break as they're walking back to the other side of the field, right? Because they recover the fumble. It was imperative to get 7 off that turnover because the defense had been playing so well. So it kind of felt like that was the offense being like, okay, we got to play our role here, because the defense was outstanding with a big stop, make it 7 instead of 7 for a field goal. It seemed like the offense came out on a mission in that second quarter.
That was a huge turning point in the game. Coming off that Hauser fumble return to score the touchdown, and then continue that momentum into the next drive with another touchdown, and then continue that even further to a field goal and then a field goal. That second quarter was a complete turnaround from the first quarter. And then they kind of took a step back in the third quarter, but once again, that persistent playoff state of mind came through, and they were able to get back into their groove in the fourth and close out the game.
Big thumbs up for number one. What'd you have for number two?
Number 3 was control the interior running gaps. And boy, I don't know if I have enough thumbs for this one. That was even those drives that we talked about, that they were extended and first down after first down. It wasn't the running game that was eating them. It was the passes. It was those 5 to 15-yard passes down the field on second down. So to hold William Stanback to 29 yards rushing is just it's just incredible. He's the East nominee for Player of the Year, and they did not let him get through we talked about not letting him get through the line of scrimmage with his shoulders north and south. He did not do that, not even once. So just excellent job by not only the defensive line, but look behind that, the linebackers and the secondary, filling all those gaps, canceling the gaps, and not being selfish about, oh, I want to get the sack. No, I have a responsibility to cancel this gap, and this is going to be a defense by committee.
You said you didn't have enough thumbs to give up, but with those mitts, I feel like your thumbs count as like 1.5. So we can call it 3 thumbs and a half. Courtney didn't like that one. We're going to get to Courtney and Luke on our post-game roundtable. Those mitts you're rocking, come on, that counts. What's your number 3 for Karsten?
2 Fantuz thumbs up then.
Yeah,
for number 2.
Okay, let's call it
there
that.
You go.
There we go.
And number 3, I'll also give 2 Fantuz thumbs up for win the turnover battle, because the difference was 5-0 for the Ticats, and even being out yardage by 160 yards, out time of possession. You look down the stats, it's the turnovers that matter the most, and 5-0 is a huge discrepancy. So big shout out to the turnover battle.
Courtney didn't like that one, so that's fine. Whatever. Let's bring in Courtney Stephen with our post-game roundtable. Courtney Stephen, Luke Tasker are here. By the way, Jagarrett Davis's performer of the game is presented by Hercules Tire. Ride on our strength. I'm just warming up from being out on the field. You guys got to go out there. We'll start with you, Courtney, because what was the energy like, and how much did you want to run over to the sidelines and put a helmet on and go out there?
And I'm going to be honest with you. I used to hate putting my helmet on. Of all the pieces of equipment, like cleats are cool, shoulder pads not bad. I used to hate putting my helmet on, but today there was something about that energy in the air. And once you got down on that field, it just felt so familiar. It's like, I wish I could have strapped it up. But no, it was great to see the guys go out there and play with some heart, man. That was impressive.
And Luke, there was some discussion in the Caretakers Club on whether you guys would run out or whether you'd be a little nervous. But you guys were in a full sprint out there to get to the to midfield. Was it just the energy of the guys behind you firing you up?
Oh, Les Brown and Hitch included in that. Sprinting onto the field, Courtney, it would be a lot easier for you to wear a helmet now. It must have been hard back when you had all that 15 years of hair on your head. But it was just such a blast, and it was great snowfall, like a great playoff setting, and to see those guys out there, just get a chance to kind of slap hands and be on the field. That was really cool way to start the game.
By the way, Tunde getting pulled by the hair right at the end. Courtney, I'm sure you know how that felt.
Well, the thing is, it's just part of the game, man. If you're going to rock the flow, you got to be comfortable knowing that eventually somebody's going to use it against you. But, I think it was a good game for Tunde. He stepped up, and it's not easy for any player right before the whistle to get called into a different position. And so, hats off to him stepping up. You don't see too many Canadian DBs playing in that slot in that field halfback spot. So, hats off to him there for stepping up. And also, I want to give a shout out to Stavros Katsantonis, man. Just getting called into the game and then rising up and making some big plays. That's clutch, man. That's playoff football.
Coach had said that he wasn't. It wasn't too big. It wasn't too big of a moment for him. And I guess the heads-up play, not just get the interception and run down, but to see how much time was left on the clock and then pick up another 10, 20, 30 yards to set Domagala up in field goal position. I mean, just a great heads-up play from a rookie.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then the pass breakup at the end of the game there in the end zone when Montreal was trying to capitalize. I was very pleased with how Katsantonis stepped up to the plate tonight, and they're going to have to continue to maybe deal with some adversity depending on how the injuries shake down, but it's going to be a storyline going into the East Final.
Certainly a game, you credit to the defense, or from my opinion. But do you guys have any concerns about the offensive production or the lack thereof going into Toronto next week?
From my point of view, I think it's one of those things where early on, Montreal was committed to the short game. They wanted to just do those, quick flats, those ins, those outs, those curls, and that's the stuff that's Trevor's bread and butter. So it wasn't too far off from his regular. But, Jeremiah, a.k.a. Deep Ball Solely, he's the one who stretches the field, and I think Tommy Condell loves those types of plays, and you got to keep that team honest and stick to who you are. So I think that's what we saw early on, and based on this type of game, Montreal got off rolling a little bit faster, but ultimately that didn't get them the W. I think it was just the way that the game started out. It was the pace worked towards Montreal's favor and eventually came back towards the Ticats.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm not particularly worried about tonight. The offensive production, it wasn't the best that we've seen. We've seen much better, much more productive offense from Jeremiah Masoli and his crew this season, but they kind of did what they had to do when they had to do it. And the yardage difference, you look at the first half, Montreal was down by 17 and they had more yards, more first downs, more all that, but that's because Hamilton got a short field 3 times and they took care of business. They got points on it 3 times over. So, it's really a credit to how well the defense played tonight, that they were given those opportunities, but they handled it and got points when they needed to.
Yeah, you can't always bank on 5 turnovers, but at the same time, if there wasn't 5 turnovers, maybe they would have called different plays and had different numbers by the end of the game.
I think one of the frustrating things, though, was the run game. Montreal did a great job. Like Hamilton's defense, Montreal did a good job, too, of stopping the run. It was really hard to get any production going there.
Yeah, and Court, I was just going to ask about Speedy B, and to see him get involved on Patrick levels with all the talking he's been doing this week, and for Jeremiah to just throw a ball where only Speedy could have caught it. He was on his game early, and I thought that was a crucial part of getting him going early.
Yeah, and if you watch any film on the Ticats, you're going to know that they love to go to that deep sail pattern, the one where they've got a little guy in the flat that's the cheese that you can't afford to take, and then they got someone deep running off the top, and Speedy B bends that late out route fading towards the sideline. One of the hardest concepts to defend in the whole CFL, and if they get in range and they can throw that for 6, then, that's all you can ask for. So they wait, they keep it in their pocket until it's time to strike, and Speedy B showed up doing what Speedy B does.
That was a beautiful pass, just a perfect, laid it up over top of the defender. And guess who the defender was? I don't know if you guys noticed.
Oh, man.
But the guy talking smack all week long, Patrick Levels. The only guy to get beat for obviously get beat for a touchdown all game long. And we talked to Marco speaking with the enemy before the game. And he's like, that's the one thing you don't want to do after you're talking all that trash is be the guy that kind of lets the team down. That's when it's obvious. So
I don't know if that was like a little subtle dig from Courtney, because he had said that if you watch the Ticats, so maybe Patrick Level should have spent a little bit less time talking, a little bit more time watching the Ticats.
Well, it's not a secret that Speedy scores touchdowns, and generally speaking, these guys, they don't invent brand new plays every week.
Yeah.
And when you watch this is one of the things I miss about football, being in the film room, watching deep study of these things. 5, 6, 7 hours of film. You can watch that kind of football and you pick up on tendencies. That's one of the Ticats' tendencies. They love to run that play. And, hey, credit to the coach for slipping it in at a time when the Montreal defense wasn't prepared for it, because it paid dividends.
I will say, trash talk or no trash talk, if Speedy B has outside leverage on a Sam linebacker to the field, he's probably going to win on the sail route, right? And like you said, Courtney, just the timing of that call and that play, that sail concept, I love it.
Jeremiah, I've said it since day one. There's Ticats fans who are calling for Dane even in the first quarter, but you have to be impressed with what Jeremiah has done. More than anything, protecting the football. He's done such a good job of, even if it's not there, throwing it away or running for 2 or 3 he's not getting sacked. He got 1 sack today, but he's not getting sacked and he's not turning the ball over.
And the thing on top of that is, we talk about the offensive production, but there were 5 turnovers in the game. Did you notice that Jeremiah, if he takes a sack, he's protecting the ball? Yeah. But on the other end of it, we see JG, Hauser, we see all these guys on the front really creating some stressful situations in that Montreal pocket. Very stressful. And when the ball hits the ground, that's a short porch. The defense turns it over to the offense, and the offense has opportunity for points.
A couple decisions I think Jeremiah, when he looks at the film, will want to have back. When he threw it into zones where I think he didn't see one defender, and then there were a couple throws that he'd want back, but that's always going to be the case. And overall, very well managed game by Jeremiah.
Court, I want to get your opinion on this because it seemed like on punt coverage, Tyler Ternowski was everywhere. It looked like 88 was always the first guy on the ball. I thought I don't want to say there was concerns, but I thought this was a really good game going into Toronto to control the punt coverage because they did a really good job. I think they only averaged 7 yards per punt return. And as a special teams guy, what did you see from them?
Well, I mean, the first guy down on punt coverage isn't always necessarily supposed to make the tackle. His job is, mix things up and make sure the returner just can't get right to his lane and take off without getting disrupted a little bit. I thought they did a great job of that on the gunners outside, beating blocks, stacking that person who was trying to block them so that they're on their back now, and the Ticats had a clear shot to disrupt, to take shots and really get in the face of those defenders, those ball carriers. But also, Quan Bray went down with an injury early on, and I think that shakes up the return game for Montreal too, because he's a guy who they like to lean on in that respect.
Yeah, you hate seeing guys go down. It looked like a head injury. We were right on the sideline when that happened. But back to the coverage team, a 7.8-yard punt return average in the playoffs is outstanding. And you keep that up, and you sort of eliminate any big plays from that phase of the game. Will really give your team an advantage because you have the opportunity in your return game to really create some dynamic plays and perhaps even some scoring. So big advantage there, and great job by the special teams unit of Hamilton.
Just an update in the West semifinal. Here's what's going on. Rene Paredes had a 48-yard field goal attempt. He missed it. It was returned by Morrow for 124 yards, but there was a penalty for illegal block, so the ball came back. Cody Fajardo threw an interception on 2 plays later, and then Carey had a 5-yard run. So long story short, the Calgary Stampeders are up 7-0 in an eventful first 7.5 minutes in the West semifinal.
Yeah, big discrepancy. We're watching it here. It's like 6-0 Rough Riders, 0-0, 7-0 Calgary.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a dogfight, and hard to predict that one.
Let's talk about the East Final. Just a reminder, if you want to go, we want to make it feel like a home game. Help fill BMO with black and gold. Go to argonauts.ca. It's argonaut.ca/tickets. And how does preparation change in an East Final? Does anything change? Does coach approach this the same way? I mean, they're already in playoff football. They had the semi, they won. How does the preparation change this week, Luke?
In my experience with Coach O, not much. He's a very much so, this is another football game, just the next challenge kind of coach. But I do think, and I can remember a little bit of just an extra emphasis on staying healthy. They are having some issues. I like most teams probably are in at least a couple position groups. They're having some issues, and they really can't afford any errant, injured in practice type of scenarios here. So there'll be an emphasis on staying healthy, staying safe, but very much so. Coach O is we've already done this 15 times this year kind of guy. This is another football game, and let's go handle our business.
Courtney, as a player though, does your mindset change at all?
Not at all, because this is something that you could have went home today. And so if you had more left in the tank, then I think that's the issue. I think you prepare for this one as if it's a championship, because it is the championship. It's the championship that you need to win to get to the next game, and players are already feeling that mode of win or go home.
One lesson I think was nice today that I saw was when they were up by 17 at half, but then Montreal sort of started crawling back in it in the third quarter, and you could just feel the tension as you're looking around the stadium at fans and people involved in the organization. And to see the Ticats kind of hold on to that lead and actually extend it from that point on was a great change of a change from what we've seen this year, where we've been in this situation, up 10 going into the fourth quarter and come on the losing end of that. I think that's an excellent testament of their development throughout the season.
Yeah, because I mean, after that play, it's a 2010 game, and there was kind of, I don't even want to say a sense of deja vu, but there was that feeling. It's like, okay, we've been down this road before, and that's what, maybe Luke, you can talk to this because 15-3. I know that the line that people have been using is like, well, it came easy. It didn't, but there were results. There were close games, but you didn't really have that adversity that this team faced this year. Those last-second losses, those tough results, undisciplined. Like, how do those previous games go into the next one?
Yeah, there was sort of a storyline developing in the early half of the season of
what's wrong with the Ticats.
Yeah, sort of fourth quarter losses, and the most notable one was the Montreal game in Tim Hortons Field that got pushed to overtime, and where they came out behind Montreal. I go back to the defensive front four for Hamilton. Trevor Harris didn't have the time to stand back there. I can think in my head, and I remember Bo Levi Mitchell. I remember Ricky Ray on two different occasions. I remember those guys in the fourth quarter at Tim Hortons Field just giving their guys chances downfield, because so often in the CFL, we've all seen it. That ball gets a 50-50 ball also stands a chance of a defensive PI too, and so you start playing 3-down football, and it can get really risky. But Trevor Harris didn't have time to really make that happen tonight. The defensive rush prevented that, and they had to stick to either getting the ball out of Trevor Harris's hands quickly or risking a sack, which is generally the way that it went tonight for them. So I put it back on the defensive front for keeping that fourth quarter lead comfortable.
Even if you won't see it on the stat sheet, but there were a couple times where you thought, oh, wow, there's a receiver wide open downfield. And it was because of that defensive line where Trevor didn't get to throw it. He had to duck under pressure, move over, and throw it. And most notably was the play that Desmond Lawrence actually got hurt on, where he had the time because of that defensive pressure to gain ground gain ground and pass deflect that ball when that receiver was wide open. If Trevor Harris threw that in rhythm, that would have been a 60-yard touchdown, and instead it was a pass deflection downfield because of the defensive line. And that's a thing you won't see on the stat sheet, but you certainly could see it when you're watching the game.
Courtney, final thoughts for this one, the Eastern semifinal. Ticats going to the Eastern final.
Hey, I think Les Brown said it right. Defense wins championships, so no matter how many points you score, if the defense doesn't show up, it's going to be a long day. And so I thought defense, they had a great showing up front in the back end. They're going to want to try and get healthy, but as long as they show up the way they did today, they're going to have a fighting chance.
You're outnumbered here on the defense wins championships.
Hey, I would ask these guys if they disagree, though.
Speaking of receivers, A, do you disagree? And B, Braylon Addison was activated off the 6-game injured list. He was out there at practice this week. You have to think that they'll make every attempt to get him in the lineup. He's a difference maker. We've seen it before. That should be an encouraging sign for the Ticats.
I do agree, and especially for this team this year, the defense will win championships. They're going to need them to keep doing that the way that they played tonight, and hopefully they can overcome some of the adversity they're seeing in the defensive secondary. Lorenzo Malden, though not a starter up front, that's a big loss tonight if we find that he can't play throughout the rest of this season. So, yes, the defense is going to be a hugely important part to this. If Braylon Addison could join into the mix in the flashes that he was able to do that this year, it was unbelievable. He almost had 200 yards in the first half of the game where he unfortunately injured his hamstring. But if he comes back and he comes back healthy, that could seriously make a difference. I will say, though, hamstrings is just so classic. People try to come back. Probably each one of us here at some point in our career probably tried to come back too early from a hamstring.
Yes, 100%.
It's just the way that goes.
Malden's injury was a hamstring as well. So, and again, he's been really good at being that switch guy with Teddy on kind of the more passing plays. But yeah, we'll keep our eye on practice. I'm assuming the Ticats will have a day off tomorrow, and make sure to be listening to Ticats Day throughout the week for everything you need to know. Andy, final thoughts?
Turnovers. If they can continue with this type of discrepancy in the turnover battle, and like Luke always talks about that toxic ratio, if they don't give up any big plays, get some big plays on your end, and win the turnover battle, they have an excellent shot to win next week and then win the Grey Cup. And then my final thought is just congratulations to the Tiger Cats, to the team, to the organization, and to this fan base. It was after a season off, coming back and coming to support all year long. It was electric in here, and to win another playoff game here in the Donut Box at Tim Hortons Field. Congratulations, Tiger Town and the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Calgary leading the Rough Riders 7-0, 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. But the final here from Tim Hortons Field, it's the Hamilton Tiger Cats 23, the Montreal Alouettes 12, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats are moving on to the Eastern Final. I'm really excited because it means we get one more game together on the Ticats Audio Network. So I'm pretty excited about that on Sunday.
Me too. I don't know what I'd do without you guys.
I know, right? We'd be watching something. All right, make sure to join us Sunday for Andy Fantuz. I'm Louie B. We'll be back for Tiger Cats pregame presented by Active Green and Ross on December 5th as the Ticats are in Toronto for the Eastern Final. Thanks for listening for the Ticats Audio Network.